Welcome to the Michael Jack Pazdon Show. This is a first installment of a monthly informal chat that we're going to have here on the Toot Sweet Social Club about cocktails, booze, history, whatever we want to talk about as we drink together here in the Toot Sweet headquarters in Napa, California. To introduce myself, Michael Jack Pazdon, hence the creative name for the show. I'm bar manager at the Goose and Gander in St. Helena, where we like to make some sick cocktails, make some stuff up, eat some food, share good times. And tonight, we're going to be focusing on Campari, the star of our show, and more importantly, the Negroni cocktail. Why the Negroni cocktail? Well, the holidays are fast approaching. And here's the thing about the holidays. You see family, you see friends, you have parties, that sort of thing. But what do you do most of all? You eat, and you eat, and you eat all the time. And then you drink, and you drink, and you drink, and you drink. And there's no better cocktail, in my mind, to prepare you for a large meal than the Negroni. Now, a little sideline here. This is Campari. If you have not tasted Campari before, it's time to go out and get yourself a bottle. But be warned, the first time you try it, it's a little bracing. It's an extremely bitter, slightly sweet, savory liqueur made in Italy. It was actually created in 1860 by Campari, who basically mixed together a bunch of different things like bitter citruses, herbs, and fruits and spices to make this aperitif liqueur. Later, because this was a very successful endeavor, they moved operations to Milan and started making tons of this liqueur that basically took the world by storm via its inclusion in certain cocktails, mainly the Negroni, the Americano, the Garibaldi, etc. The Negroni is basically a offspring of a previous cocktail called the Americano. The Americano is a mix of Campari, sweet vermouth, and soda water. It's actually itself an offspring of a Milano Torino, came from the production centers of both Campari and the vermouth that people were using back then, often Cinzano. But Italians around the turn of the century noticed that there were a lot of Americans coming and spending their money and enjoying this cocktail with a little bit of soda in it and just, a little bit of international relations. They renamed the cocktail the Americano. Now, legend has it that there was a certain count named Camillo Negroni, Count Camillo Negroni. He was an aristocrat, of course, being a count, and he was a bon vivant, a man of the kind of guy that you'd like to sit down and have a drink with, at least for the stories. He made his money, legend has it, in North America, wrestling cattle, and even as a rodeo cowboy. Some legend has it that he presided over a fencing club in New York City for a little while. But anyway, he made his money, came back to Europe, spent some time in London, where he developed an affection for gin, and then in 1916 found himself in a bar in Florence, considering an Americano, but maybe, being a rough and tumble kind of aristocratic man of the sporting life, just fresh in from London, decided that he wanted to spike it up a little bit and asked the bartender if the bartender wouldn't mind substituting that, refreshing but no alcohol soda water with a little bit of gin. Hence, the Negroni is born. Now, other people say that maybe that wasn't the story, but it's definitely the best story, so we're going to go with that one. The thing about cocktail history is it's fuzzy because it's made while people are drinking. Now, to make a Negroni, it's one of the most simple cocktails in the world. It's equal parts gin, Campari, and sweet vermouth. It's really hard to mess it up. And that makes it a great cocktail for going to a bar where maybe you think the bartender's a little distracted by the girl at the end of the bar, and you can just explain to them, just put equal parts gin, Campari, sweet vermouth in a glass, stir it around for me, and serve it to me. You can either do that up, some people like it that way, or strained over fresh ice. So we have our Campari. I'm going to put, just to get this started, because we all need a drink. It's 0.75 ounces is our one part of the Campari. I'm going to take some gin. Plymouth gin is a great gin to use for a traditionally made Campari. It's a little bit broader and earthier than some of your London dry gin. So 0.75 ounces of that guy. And some sweet vermouth. Now, you can use all kinds of sweet vermouth for a Negroni. It's one of those things where, you know, a lot of vermouths will shine. You can use Cinzano, you can use Martini and Rossi if you're feeling very, you know, Italian. I have some Dolan's sweet vermouth, which is a French vermouth, but it's beautiful, subtle, light, and it goes well in a traditional Negroni. 0.75 ounces. That easy. The other thing about this is if you mess up a little bit, you get a little bit wrong proportions on this one because you can't remember one part, one part, one part. It happens. It's okay. It's a durable cocktail. It works out. It works out. Some people even like a little bit more gin maybe. I like it this way. It doesn't matter. It's your cocktail. It's okay. So you put that in a glass. Now, Negroni is a cocktail that I think you definitely want to stir. Stirring the cocktail, make sure you don't introduce all sorts of air bubbles into it, break up the viscosity, keeps it just beautiful, ruby colored, nice. You can use, we have a nice fancy Japanese mixing glass here, but if you have yourself just a 16-ounce pint glass, that'll work. An old orange juice container that you cut the top off of it in a pinch, that'll work too. Just clean it out first. It's okay. Doesn't matter. Add the booze, add a good amount of ice, and stir it. Now, when stirring a drink, it depends on what kind of ice you're using. We have this beautiful, nice, big, hard ice here. Yeah, I just said big, hard ice. But if you have like some crumbly, wet ice, just stir it a little bit less time. You don't want to water it down too much, but by diluting the cocktail and chilling it, you're actually helping some of the aromatics of the drink come to their full expression. And Negroni, without any ice, it's not very palatable. I'm going to stir, 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 stir. I'd like to introduce some people here. We have, because it's a holiday theme, I flew my parents in from across the country just for this show. Mike and Becky Pazdon over there. We got Joy Marie O'Reilly of Calistoga, California. We got Gabrielle Saul of Napa, California, and
Justin Lightner from Napa, California.
Yeah, Justin Lightner from Napa, California.
From Tova.
There's also a dog down here.
Check him out.
Tova. All right, so again, you can serve your Negroni up, or you can serve it on the rocks. This one we're going to make on the rocks. Put some fresh ice into a glass. Always use fresh ice. You don't want the ice that you've been stirring with to break down any further than it has. You want your drink to have some legs to it. Oops. Top it up. A little bit more ice. And then here's the most important part. The Negroni in itself, the combination of these spirits, is delicious. But there's an extra aromatic component that comes from the garnish, which is a twist of orange. Some people will use a slice, but I really prefer a twist. You want to get just a thin slice, avoiding the white part of a nice orange here. Try to get yourself organic oranges so that you're not also spraying pesticides into your glass, or whatever, it's your drink. Twist it over the glass like this, and then just swirl it inside. Another little trick is this little wide zester is great to make that twist, but if you have a little channel zester like this one, you can get a little extra spray on top by just kind of zesting and then discarding these little guys like that. That'll help to, on the nose, the orange oil comes up, it mixes with the final flavors in a retro olfactory sense and makes for a brighter, more interesting cocktail. I'm going to give you the first sip of that one. We share glasses around here. Delicious? Delicious. Delicious. This is a standard Negroni. Now, you don't have to follow any rules with this drink. I mean, it's a simple drink, but there's all sorts of things that you can do with it. For example, your choice of gin doesn't have to be the same. It can be whatever you have around. Just make sure it's, you know, decent. I don't know. But you might want to switch it up. This is a product from St. George Spirits in Alameda. It's Botanivore gin. It's a much broader craft spirit style of gin, which maybe we have this on hand. We want to use that one. It'll change the profile of the drink. And maybe we don't want to use the same vermouth every time. Maybe we want to use something a little bit different, like Carpano Antica formula. Now, Carpano Antica formula is different from a lot of vermouths on the market. It is probably the oldest vermouth. Some people say that the inventor of Carpano Antica actually invented vermouth as we know it, but it's definitely been being produced since 1786. It's an old school kind of thing. It has a depth of flavor, a little bit of almost like a vanilla note to it, much more earthy, a little bit more bitter than a lot of vermouths out there, and it's a lot of fun. It's definitely my vermouth of choice with brown spirits, for example, in a Manhattan. And while the Negroni is great with a lighter vermouth, a little bit of this can be fun as well, especially when the gin has more balls to it like this one. So I'm actually, instead of going to use a whole, we're just going to put that guy in there and see how that works. Then, again, our Campari. And this time I'm only using 0.5 ounce because I'm going to reach for another bitter called Gran Classico from Tempest Fugit Spirits. It's a craft product as well. And we're just going to put a little bit of that in there, break the rules a little bit to see how that works. Again, stir it with your ice. That Negroni didn't last long, did it?
It required a second go around, really.
Yeah.
To appreciate.
This is the great thing about this cocktail. The bitterness of the Campari, the sort of brightness from the orange peel, the length provided by the vermouth, the botanicals by the gin, it stimulates the appetite. It prepares you for a long night of eating and further drinking. Generally before a meal, I say show some restraint. Limit yourself to one because, maybe you're going to have some champagne before dinner. Maybe you're going to move on to, your first white wine with your first course. Who knows? We, again, here are breaking all the rules, and we're going to taste several. But it is one of the best drinks out there before the mealtime. All right, that's good enough for that one. Good. More ice. Strain. And again with the orange zest. All right, let's see what you think of that one.
Totally different.
Totally different, right? What do you get? You get a little bit...
All those spices from the Carpano.
The Carpano's coming out, adding a depth of spice, a broadness, maybe a little bit more of a cold weather style. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's nothing about like a Negroni on a patio in the Napa Valley or better in Torino or Milano. As the sun's going down, as the aperitivo hour is setting in before dinner, taking in the day, allowing that liminal phase of the workday to the evening to take its course. And when it's hot out, maybe go for the lighter style. Maybe when it's a little bit darker, you maybe switch it up, make yourself more of a winter Negroni. What do you think?
Very nice.
I think the Carpano definitely cuts the Campari a little bit more than the traditional Negroni recipe, which is nice.
Yeah.
I'm not a bitter person, so.
Yeah. A little bit less of the bitter up front.
A little more friendly, if you will.
Sure, absolutely.
What would you compare the Gran Classico to? I'm not familiar with the lore.
Well, I mean, in terms of, you have your traditional Italian aperitif liqueurs like Campari, Aperol is another great one, even lighter. But the Gran Classico, you can taste this right now. Let's do it that way. It adds just a whole different caramelized, straight bitter, less orangey dimension to the drink. It's delicious all on its own.
There's about Christmas spices in there. What I'm getting.
Christmas spices, baking spices. It's broader. It almost has more of what you might associate with an Amaro, which is a digestif liqueur, definitely a lighter version of that, but still solidly in a sort of aperitif / digestif category, if you will. Clove, got that? So, that's one little variation on a traditional Negroni. But here's the thing. Negroni, being a very simple thing, like all very simple cocktails, you have endless possibilities for variation. I mean, yeah, sure, you can switch out the kind of vermouth that you use, cut the Campari with a little bit of a different bitter, but why not switch out the base spirit? Why not? There are no rules. It is your cocktail. So let's talk about a different cocktail, one that has a name that recommends itself to anyone, called the Old Pal cocktail. Now, the Old Pal cocktail is a product of Prohibition. Prohibition gave us a lot of nasty things like years without legal alcohol, crime, income tax, all sorts of things like that in this country. But it also gave us, well, it gave Europe a lot, basically, because all of the American bartenders who were, serious about their craft and trade didn't know what to do with themselves. They didn't want to go work in speakeasies because it was below them. Some of them went on to new careers. Some of them worked in soda shops. Some of them jumped the pond and went to Europe. One of those bartenders, a very important one, was named Harry McElhone. And he went to London and worked at Ciro's and went to France for their branch there, ended up a few places, and eventually opened his own bar in Paris called Harry's New York Bar. Now, this was a great time in the 20s for, of course, the American expatriate culture. And what did Americans want in a spot to hang out with? Well, a little bit of a home in the form of cocktails. Harry was great, lead bartender. He mixed up all the pre-Prohibition drinks with style and panache and invented plenty of his own. Great thing about being an American in Europe at that time, you were exposed to all sorts of different liqueurs, aperitif liqueurs like Campari, that weren't really popular back in the States at that time. So Harry, he made a lot of drinks. This one he actually credits to somebody else, a sports writer, but he was definitely the first one to print it in his 1922 book, which was called the ABC of mixed drinks. And basically, it's a variation on a Negroni in a retroactive sense, though nobody really knows if he had ever heard of a Negroni. It's a rye-based drink. We're going to use some Rittenhouse rye here. Equal parts rye, Campari, and instead of sweet vermouth in this one, dry French vermouth, Sparrows. Like that. This cocktail is called an Old Pal. I mean, the name speaks for itself. I mean, you're away from home, you're looking for something to comfort you. Well, I just wanted an Old Pal. Well, make me one. So, you do. Again, stir the drink with your beautiful ice. So here you have a little mashup of cultures, right? The Italian, the French, and the American rye whiskey. I like this drink because, well, I love rye whiskey. It's fruity, spicy, because of the base grain that you're using there. But you still get that bitterness. You still get a brightness. Stirring this a little bit longer because the whiskey we're using is 100 proof. You want a little bit more water in there to let those aromatics really shine. All right. Now, this drink I'm going to actually serve up. It's pretty that way. Strained it into a little coupette there. But we're still not going to forget our orange juice. nice one. Twist it over. It's great when you do a drink up like this and you can see the orange oil on top of the drink. And that is the pure deliciousness right there.
Secret.
Yeah. All right. I get to go first on this one. Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
The Old Pale.
Old Pal.
Old Pal.
Old Pal. Now, I mean, again, I chose the Negroni because it's one of my favorite cocktails. It is like an Old Pal to me. I can go all over the place, have somebody mix me a Negroni, and I can take myself back to any place I want to be where I've drank one before. But this kind of drink as well, again, simple. You can tell any bartender that happens to have rye whiskey, dry vermouth, and some Campari on hand and an orange, how to make this for you. And maybe it could be your new traveling companion. Or just something to have at home. What do you think, Gabs?
I that extra bite from the rye. And
Yeah.
You can taste the total difference between the dry vermouth and that, and just total different complexity in that.
Totally different.
Oh,
The
yeah.
dry vermouth it has less sweetness. It has less of that vanilla into it.
Really.
We're using Nolly Pratt, original recipe, French dry vermouth. This is a great vermouth. It's delicious on its own, with just some rocks, a little twist on it. Highly recommend picking up a bottle of this if you're going to make yourself even a martini. It's great stuff.
Julia Child's favorite.
Julia Child's favorite vermouth. I can't get a better recommendation than that.
Where's the Rittenhouse from?
And the Rittenhouse is a great whiskey. It's cheap.
It's strong.
It's strong. It's flavorful as all get out. It can be a little bit hard to find, but it's absolutely fantastic. I definitely recommend if you see this whiskey, get yourself a bottle, get yourself 2 bottles because you never know when you're going to find it again. But there are a lot of other good rye whiskeys out there these days. Rye making a major comeback, bottled in Kentucky.
Michael, I apologize if we've done this before, but do you want to talk a little bit about vermouth and
Great question.
shelf life?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Other important things, other little secrets to making your cocktails at home that a lot of people don't realize is vermouth is an extremely perishable substance. I mean, it's wine. It's aromatized wine that's lightly fortified. And that means it has more shelf life than that bottle of Chardonnay that you uncorked last night. You know, it's been sitting on the counter. It's going to turn pretty fast. Vermouth is going to turn a little bit less fast, but I highly recommend that when you open your bottle of vermouth, you mix your drink, put the cap back on it, stick it in the fridge, okay? That way it's going to sort of fade, oxidize, whatever else may happen to it a lot slower than if you leave it out in your liquor cabinet. Vermouth is delicious. It's a wonderful tradition of a craft spirit. It's a great aperitif. I mean, we're talking about Italian-inspired culture here, drinking culture here, where vermouth is generally enjoyed on its own, maybe with some ice, maybe with a twist. And it's delicious that way. It's a great thing in the summer, especially, or again, at the aperitif hour, whenever, just to sip on, low alcohol, flavorful, refreshing, easy. But it's gotten a bad name in this country. I mean, especially in the realm of the martini drinker, where people started to say, you know what, I want a martini, gin or vodka, whatever they're going to say. Don't even think about putting any vermouth in my martini. Look at France. Think about France. Wave it over the bottle. Let the sun shine through it. You know, do a quarter turn around the glass without pouring. They say all these things. They're really fun to say, but you know what? It's a shame because a martini made with vermouth is absolutely delicious. Many people think it's not. Why? Because they've probably gone into a bar, ordered a martini when they were young. Bartender didn't properly stir the drink, probably was a little warm, and maybe reached for a bottle of vermouth that had been sitting in the bar rail for months, maybe even a year, spoiling. I mean, this stuff, I mean, when it gets too oxidized, it's terrible. So you're not going to like vermouth from then on. But if it's kept properly in the fridge, you can find a smaller bottle so you don't have to dump it out. Do that. Get a smaller bottle. Keep it in the fridge. And when it's done, when it's been like a month, just dump the stuff out or cook with it. It's great for cooking. There you go. Problem solved. Vermouth is cheap. just buy more. That's all there is to it. And yes, you can remember that at home. So, Old Pal cocktail was in Harry McElhone's 1922 book, but it disappeared by the time 1927 rolled around. He wrote a new book called Barflies and Cocktails, and he replaced it with the Boulevardier. Interesting drink as well. This time it's based on bourbon. It's, again, basically it's something like a Negroni or a cousin because it's equal parts bourbon. He goes back to the sweet vermouth in this one. And then Campari. Now, the Boulevardier was named after a magazine that Erskine Wynn, an American expatriate of Vanderbilt, or nephew of a Vanderbilt, published. So, you know, a little nod to the guest on that one. And the sweetness of the bourbon in this one definitely differentiates it from the Old Pal. The sweet vermouth, again, is going to come up, the breadth of the sweet vermouth is going to come up to match that, which is nice. But very similar. Stir for a little less time than the rye, but a lot. And strain. Now these two whiskey variations are wonderful around the holidays because they still have that aperitif character to them. But again, sometimes when it's cold outside, as cold as it gets wherever you are, it's nice to be able to, you know, brown up your spirits as you sit by the fire. These are, of course, also really great cocktails for entertaining around the holidays because being straight spirit cocktails, you can mix up a whole batch of these ahead of time. Just measure it out. Put it in a little decanter or pitcher. You can even sort of chill it down and dilute it a little ahead of time. Okay. And then just pour it over ice or pour it into glasses for people. It's easy. People can serve themselves in this way, or if you want to bartend at your party, I don't know. I never want to, but I do it for a living. You can stir it up on the spot. There you go.
I've also seen people do like a really fun thing with a punch bowl and a large ice cube.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So people can just dip and pour and have their cocktail, and it's not diluted, but it's still chilled, and
yeah,
the host doesn't have to tend to the bar.
Absolutely. Of course, if you're doing something in a punch bowl, you do want a very large ice cube. You can make it in a one of those. What do you call those? What do you call those? Bunt pans or something like that. The round ones,
yeah,
the thingies.
Bunt pan. Yeah, you got it right.
Or just a sheet pan. Make a big old block of ice. Stick it in there, and hope your guests do drink fast because it will melt over time, and there's nothing worse than an overly diluted drink. But you know, it's a great way to keep it simple.
So it seems that orange is with the Campari in every drink you've done. Is that a personal preference, or is that kind of standard?
I'd say that most of the time when you see Campari in a drink, you're going to look for orange as your garnish. It just complements it. Campari, again, is based on certain bitter citruses that come out in the drink when you drink it without the orange, but that the addition of the orange oil just really makes the drink pop.
Yes, wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. One final drink that I want to make for you is the Negroni sbagliato, which means messed up Negroni. And this is a fantastic, going the opposite direction from what we've been doing here, where we've been adding more robust spirits. The Negroni sbagliato is a Negroni where we put the Campari, the sweet vermouth, in. We stir those. And notice no gin. We forgot the gin. We messed up. And then we're going to pour that over fresh ice. And then realizing that we messed up, we're going to further mess up by adding a little bit of Prosecco to top that off.
Like when you're in Napa.
It
Just
doesn't like
add wine
bubbles.
to it. It'll be fine.
Now this drink still has the bitterness of the Campari, the herbal length of the sweet vermouth, but the Prosecco adds effervescence, which brightens up the drink further, lengthens it further, a little bit lower alcohol content, making it a really nice choice when maybe that dinner is going to go maybe 10 courses rather than 6 with paired wines.
So it's like a Prosecco Americano.
It's a Prosecco Americano, exactly. So it's taking a step back from the Negroni towards the Americano, but with the addition of Prosecco. You have a little integrator there as well. Again, great for the holidays, great for family, great before the meal. Negroni sbagliato.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Any questions?
No, I do have to say though, the bourbon one was, we enjoyed, we're talking about it, was our favorite.
What's your
The
favorite?
Rittenhouse Rye right before that, the bitters stuck in your cheeks, it lingered until you actually poured that other cocktail.
Yes.
And the last one you made was, the orange came out in it, the sweetness of the bourbon, it was just, I don't know, it's awesome.
So Gabby's saying that she liked the bourbon one, the sweetness of the bourbon. Now, probably also the sweet vermouth having something to do with that. Keeping the cocktail sort of fuller, more broad in the mouth, tempering the bitterness of the Campari. It's still there, but it holds it in check, right? Whereas the dry vermouth is going to, let the rye shine in its own way, but it's going to maybe be a little bit more edgy in its way. So, and here's the thing. Again, these are some classic cousins to the Negroni, but why can't you make your own? So, tending to Gabby's tastes,
Okay.
we might have some Campari here to get it started. Maybe we'll have the sweet vermouth as well. Maybe we'll use a mixture of sweet vermouth. Maybe we'll use part of the Carpano and part of the Dolan.
All right.
Maybe we'll go back to rye just because we want to like the rye cocktail a lot. Really.
Don't let the dry vermouth hold off on the
Exactly.
the beautifulness of it.
Exactly. And then maybe instead of just the Campari, which we put a little bit less in, maybe we'll add a different bitter, this being an Amaro, digestif liqueur. This is Chinar, actually has some artichokes in its recipe. So somehow it's always nice for California. Add a little bit of that. Add our ice. And stir it nice and long. It's important to realize that experimentation is it's the heart of the cocktail. I mean, the cocktail is a uniquely American art form, like jazz, like the hot rod. It's all about customization, messing around, taking things apart, putting them back together. Sometimes they go back together broken, but sometimes they come back together better than the sum of their parts. So mess around. Who cares? It's your drink.
How long would you tell someone at home making their drink, tell them to stir a cocktail? I'm
Good
sure it
question.
depends on the main ingredient in it and
Good
the power
question.
of it.
Now, it's, again, the length of time that you stir really depends on the ice that you're using. So if you have a bunch of broken up, wet or partially melted ice, that's going to melt faster than ice cubes that are big, really clear and hard. So you have to kind of use your judgment. There's a lot of trial and error. But look for about 30 seconds with a lot of ice. See how that works out. Adjust next time.
Okay. So for the person at home, making cocktails, they might want to look into perhaps some other form other than their ice machine.
Absolutely. Now, if you wanted to get fancy with it, there are these great silicone ice molds made by Tovolo, or Tovolo. I have no idea how you say it.
I don't know. I think
but
there are many companies that do it,
but you can find them at specialty, cooking stores, etc. And they make very different shapes for stirring like this. You want to look for those 1 by 1 inch cubes. You can fill those with water, put them in your freezer. Make sure that they're fresh because you don't want your ice sitting in your freezer taking on the aromas of the other things in your freezer, like frozen chicken, frozen peas, not good in the drink, whatever.
I have read in books that you can cover it in saran wrap, right?
You could also do that.
To keep it from that flavor instead of emptying everything out of your freezer.
Eventually, those flavors will steep in, so if all you have in your freezer is ice from a few months ago, maybe put off the cocktail, go buy some, do something. Or not, it's your drink. Now, for this one, I'm going to bring out a nice hand-carved, crystal clear piece of ice, as is our style at the Goose and Gander.
Have your initials in it.
And not skimp on the orange zest here.
Juicy. I remember the angle.
And we'll see what Gabby thinks of this one.
It's definitely a lot sweeter.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, a little more of that bitterness actually comes out than the last drink.
Yeah.
What exactly does the Cynar add to it?
Well, Cynar, it's a pretty aggressively bitter spirit, but it definitely has some more of that digestive breath to it.
Okay.
Rather than something that's sort of light, bright, citrus-driven, it ruminates, if you will. You can taste some Cynar on its own.
I was going to say, it's a very interesting liqueur taste on its own.
So, Justin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, if you have to spend some money to have a great Negroni, where you should spend the money on booze? The gin,
Well, again, you don't have to spend much to make a good Negroni. Again, the Plymouth or whatever your preferred brand of gin is gonna. Gin's not expensive generally. I mean, it's a pretty easy to produce spirit in its way. You of course want to get some kind of premium brand. You don't want to get something out of a plastic bottle, but I mean, otherwise, follow your bliss. Plymouth, I like it. It's great. Great local product as well. It's 209 Gin. Makes a great Negroni. Napa Valley Gin produced in San Francisco. But, you be the judge. Follow your taste. But this one will do just fine. For your vermouth, again, I mean, the Negroni's forgiving. You can use your Martini and Rossi. You can use your Cinzano. As long as it's fresh, it's going to taste great in the cocktail. So be your own judge or experiment. This is a little bit more expensive. It actually has a little bit better of a shelf life. It's definitely, if you're a whiskey drinker or if you enjoy vermouth and other cocktails, it's going to change your entire life. But experiment with it. There's also a lot of other new American craft vermouths on the market that are worth trying out. Maybe you'll find that you like those in your Negroni. It's all about experimentation. And
Spend your money on ice.
Yes, right. Spend your money on ice or ice tray. Campari, it's the standard. It's not too expensive itself either. Basically, you don't have to spend a lot of money to have a good Negroni. So there you go. Not at home. Excellent.
One
Nice.
glass.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Well, clearly, because the glass is empty.
Yeah.
Not quite, I'm not letting go of it yet.
Would you say your favorite on that one, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
You switched it from the bourbon to the rye. And even though it has that more intense proof on it,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot smoother than it was before.
All right, so what are we going to call it? Gabby's friend? Gabby's
Gabby's
Street?
pal.
Gabby's pal?
Gabby Street.
Gabby's All right, so come into the Goose and Gander, order a Gabby's friend or street or pal cocktail, and we'll make you one just like that. And there you go. Thank you for joining us. It's the Michael Jack Pazdon Show. We'll be here every month on the second Monday of the month, just making drinks, bringing a few of our favorite things, and yeah, just hanging out. Good night.